Isn't that what it's about, right? Like after a while, life just gets you're just about like you spend 90% of your time just pushing through stuff, you know. Used to be used to feel like, man, we were living, we were on the edge, and then you get to a certain age and it's like, what's in the kitchen and what do I got to push through to today? So anyways, I appreciate your patience. Thank you guys for that. And I wanted to look deeper into the etheric double tonight, like as deep as we can go. Remember on this broadcast, though, that we try to find the parallels between everybody's research. Not saying that we know the ultimate answer, but if you believe that you have the ultimate answer, that's fine to all this stuff. But I find that the more I dig, the more that we're just like listening to people that have experienced conscious exploration. They have some experience with this stuff. You have to remember that like 80% of the stuff that we're taking in nowadays, and that's just a crazy number I threw out there, but 80% of the stuff that we're taking in nowadays is people's opinions from either their experience or an outside point of view. So that doesn't mean that there aren't legitimate conscious explorers, people that really want to know what's going on. And I watched A Dark Song again, and the guy in that movie said to see behind things, like to see the architecture. So that's really what it's all about, right? And then we can just take whoever's theory fits us best and stay with that if we want to. But for the most part, like, we like to keep exploring. Now, I think there's something to this etheric double thing, because we've researched, The Circuit of Force by Dion Fortune. And when we get into the occult stuff, it's usually, or at least what I'm doing is I'm usually trying to find what tools are there. Either one, for transformation, right, which is, I guess you could say the enlightenment journey, or two, tools to be able to explore consciousness better. So manifesting is kind of on the back burner, but I feel like manifesting things is pretty much an outcome of changing the self. So it's not something that, I put on the front focus of things, because if you change the self, you can manifest whatever, I think. But yeah. So what's up? What's up, Sudi, Dutchy, Wolf, Subconscious Light, Abby, Domek, what up? Hey, Bryce, thank you guys for coming out. And whoever else is lurking. I know we always got some lurkers. And I know there's people that like to watch the broadcast after too, but I'm still holding on to that live late night radio vibe. I'm not sure that I'll ever let it go, honestly. I don't think I ever will. So Arthur E. Powell has a whole text about the etheric double, and I figure we could get into that. But I want you guys to know that a few of you that I talked to was like, "Oh, you haven't seen Jacob's Ladder?" Jacob's Ladder was no. There are, believe it or not, movies that I have not seen yet, and Jacob's Ladder was the freakiest movie I've ever seen in a long time. All of the good movies are come like back from the 90s and 80s, but this one was pretty trippy. It made me think a lot. And there was a part in there where he's like, he keeps going to this chiropractor. The guy's losing his mind, and I don't, hopefully I'm not spoiling anything, but the guy's losing his mind pretty much. Like, he's slipping in and out of these kind of realities because he has some like Vietnam trauma. But he's really slipping in and out of these realities. But anyways, point is, the thing that his chiropractor said was pretty profound. His chiropractor said something like this. He said that demons aren't like what we think they are, right? They're like these things that try to get us, they torture us enough so that eventually we let go of everything that we're holding on to. So the more that we hold on to, I guess, our life, or the more we're scared to let go of, like, our life, our identity, all of the things that we desire, all of that stuff that we really hold on to, the more we try to hold on to it, the more demons, the more torturous it becomes. And I'm butchering what he said. I was trying to find the clip, but I couldn't find it. But basically what he was saying is, for the whole transmutation thing to happen, is you have to let go of all of it. Like, let go of everything you desire, let go of everything you think who you are as far as your identity is concerned, and let go of Well, pretty much life. Like if you're just trying to hold on to life or whatever, in a fear way, right? Because that's how we get tortured. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. So, yeah, I just thought I would say that. If you haven't seen it, go check out Jacob's Ladder. So, all right. Who's Gene Anonymous, lurking and proud of it. There you go. Well, it's your right to lurk, Drop that clip. Yeah, you know the clip I'm talking about. Drop that clip. It should let you. I hope it lets you. So he goes on to say that every student of occultism and magic is familiar with the fact that man possesses several bodies or vehicles through which he is enabled to express himself on the various planes of nature: physical, astral, mental, so forth. We talked about that before, right? The occultist finds that physical matter exists in 7 grades or orders of density: atomic, subatomic, superetheric, etheric, gaseous, liquid, and solid. And particles of all these grades enter into the composition of the physical vehicle. How are these people are speaking like it's true science. Well, let's see. The latter, however, has 2 well-marked divisions: the dense body, composed of solids, liquids, and gases, and the etheric body, or double, as it is frequently called, consisting of the 4 finer grades of physical matter. So it's our purpose to study this etheric double, its nature, its appearance, its functions, its relationship to the other vehicles, its connections with what we call prana, or vitality, its birth, growth, and decay, its connection with certain methods of healing, with mesmerism, with mediumship, and materializations. So this is all of the stuff we talk about: mesmerism, mediumship. Remember what happened to Chris? Materializations, manifestations, the powers that it can be made to exercise, and a host of miscellaneous etheric phenomena, which it is connected. And I personally believe that the etheric double is, or I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what's the difference between the etheric and the astral, because they're kind of talking about it in different senses, right? So I think that most of the paranormal phenomena out there is based on like what's going on in the etheric realms or the astral realms. It's usually not like a lot of people want to think it's always a demon or something trying to scare them. And I think a lot of times it has more to do with this than it does anything. So he goes on to say that briefly we shall find that the etheric double, while necessary to the life of the physical body, is not, properly speaking, a separate vehicle of consciousness. That means, like that it receives and distributes the vital force which emanates from the sun and is thus intimately connected with physical health. That it possesses certain, what we were talking about before, chakrams or force centers. That's if you believe in those things. Each with its distinct function, that upon the action of etheric matter mainly depends the memory of the dream life, that it plays an important part in determining the kind of physical vehicle which an incarnating ego will receive. So these people believe that based on what your etheric double is, not your genes or your biology, but that your etheric conscious being is pretty much what makes up all of you. Even your body type, even your genetics. It kind of constitutes what kind of person you're going to become, I guess. Even your dream life, which is a lie. So they're saying that the etheric double plays a huge part in determining the kind of the physical vehicle which an ego will receive. That, like the physical body, it dies and decays in due course, releasing the soul for the next stage in its cyclic journey. That it is especially associated with what is known as vital or magnetic healing, and also with mesmerism for purposes of healing, anesthesia or trance, and that it is the principal factor concerned in seance room phenomena. Does anybody here ever experienced a seance room phenomena? Have you taken part in a seance? I'm not advocating it, not promoting it. I'm just curious about that. I haven't. I mean, one time. It's been like once. where, you do the whole sit at the table with a bunch of people and do the whole seance thing. I find it kind of unnecessary, but they say there's a ton of phenomena associated with it, such as movements of objects, production of raps or sounds, and materializations of all kinds. That the development of the etheric faculties confers new powers and reveals many etheric phenomena, which are beyond the experience of most men. That by the use of the matter of the etheric body, objects may be magnetized, much as living beings may be mesmerized. And finally, that the etheric body provides the material out of which the substance known as ectoplasm is formed. Back into this ectoplasm. So maybe Ghostbusters was on to something when they were talking about ectoplasm. The etheric double has been given a variety of names. In early theosophical literature, it was often called the astral body, or the astral man, or the linga sharira. In all later writings, however, none of these terms are ever applied to the etheric double, as they belong properly to the body composed of astral matter, the body of the Kama of the Hindus. In reading The Secret Doctrine, therefore, and other books of older literature, the student must be on his guard not to confuse the two quite distinct bodies known as the etheric double and the astral body. So here we are again. They're calling it's two different things. That's what they're saying. The correct Hindu name for the etheric double is the Prana Mayakosha. That's a big word. I want to see if I can put this in chat, and then you guys can say it to yourself. This is what the Hindus call the etheric double. There it is. Or vehicle of prana. In German, it's known as the doppelganger. Think about where we get that word from. After death, when separated from the dense physical body, it is known as the wraith. What's up, El Naturel? And also has been called the phantom. I think that's what Muldoon called it. He called it the phantom, or an apparition, or a churchyard ghost. And Raja Yoga, the etheric double and the dense body together are known as the Sithlopati, or the lowest apati of Atma. So if you've taken, I said before in a broadcast that I took world history, but it was actually world religion. So if the Hindu religion is the oldest religion, then you would have to think that the mystics of the Hindu religion were talking about this before Muldoon, before some of the oldest occultists that we know. So this etheric double, this thing that we keep calling the astral body or whatever, which they're saying it's two different things, has been talked about since probably the beginning of religion or any kind of doctrine. So every solid, liquid, and gaseous particle of the physical body is surrounded with an etheric envelope. Hence, the etheric double, as its name implies, is a perfect duplicate of the dense form. In size, it projects about 1/4 of an inch beyond the skin. The etheric aura, however, or health aura, as it is frequently called, projects normally 7 inches beyond the skin, and this will be further described later. What's up, April? Yeah, but what happens if you lose weight? Does your etheric double lose weight? Hence, one who sets himself deliberately to purify his dense body at the same time automatically refines its etheric counterpart. Okay, I guess he just kind of answered the question. So anytime you purify your body, it will refine your etheric counterpart, which goes back to this book I read, and I've been looking for it, but I talked to you guys about it before, about the true nature of alchemy was an energetic transformation, right? Through the soil of your body, you were to transform the etheric being of yourself. Basically, the same way that you water a plant, but I guess in a metaphorical sense, you would water the soils, heat the soil, give it earth, all the stuff to your body, and it's supposed to grow a whole other being energetically. So these encasings, these avatars that we live in are really just like planting a seed inside the ground. But I mean, it sounds good. It doesn't make it true, but I thought it was pretty interesting. So into the composition of the etheric double must enter something of all the different grades of etheric matter. But the proportions may vary greatly and are determined by several factors, such as the race, subrace, and the type of man or woman, as well as by their individual karma. As yet, the only information which the compiler has been able to gather regarding the particular properties and functions of each of the 4 grades of etheric matter is of the following. So you have the etheric, which is the medium of ordinary current, electricity, and of sound. So light and sound, or electricity and sound. Then you have the superetheric, which is the medium of light. The subatomic, which is the medium of the finer forms of electricity. And then the atomic, the medium for the transmission of thought from brain to brain. How do they figure this stuff out, really? I hope they get into this in this text, because so far I love Dion Fortune's text, but she's explaining the etheric double, and I'm hoping that they'll get into, like, okay, this is how we figured this out. Wouldn't that be nice if people said that more often? It's like, yeah, this all sounds cool and it makes sense, and it explains a lot of astral travel, conscious explorations, paranormal phenomena, but how did you figure this out? How do you know this? The following is stated in Theosophy for May 1922 by F.T. Pierce to be correct. So, the atomic. In occult chemistry, the atomic would equal to, in physics, the electronic. For an example, an electron. The occult chemistry, the subatomic, would equal to, in physics, what's called a positive nucleus. For an example, an alpha particle. Hope you guys are getting this, because I'm probably not smart enough to understand this. So in occult chemistry, the occult science, the superetheric would equal to, in physics, the neutralized nucleus. For example, the neutron. And then you have the etheric, which equals, in physics, to the atomic, which an example is the nascent N or atomic H. And then the gaseous is molecular gas, etc., to physics, and for example, like H2 and 2 are gaseous compounds. And how do they know this? So in appearance, the etheric double is a pale violet gray or blue-gray, faintly luminous, and coarse or fine in texture according as the dense physical body is coarse or fine. The etheric double has 2 main functions. First, let me tell you guys this, okay? Everything that I hear about in like astral travel, when people say I've astral traveled, has been nothing like my out-of-body experience. More like lucid dreaming, honestly. But everything that I hear about when I read these texts about the etheric double has been absolutely like the out-of-body experience that I had. I'm not saying that they're totally separate things. I'm just saying it's definitely different. So anyways, the etheric double has 2 main functions. Firstly, it absorbs prana, or vitality, and distributes this to the whole body, as we shall see in detail presently. Secondly, it acts as an intermediary or bridge between the dense physical body and the astral body, transmitting the consciousness of physical sense contacts through the etheric brain to the astral body, and also transmitting consciousness from the astral and higher levels down into the physical brain and nervous system. It's important to recognize that the etheric double, being merely a part of the physical body, is not normally capable of acting as a separate vehicle of consciousness in which a man can live or function. Like, it can't just leave the body totally and function without. It's always connected to the body. That's why you always feel that pull back to the body. It has only a diffused consciousness belonging to its parts and has no mentality, nor does it readily serve as a medium of mentality when disjoined from the dense counterpart. So it is a vehicle, not of mental consciousness, but of prana or vitality. Its dislocation from the dense particles to which it conveys the life currents is disturbing and unhealthy. In normal, healthy people, in fact, the separation of the etheric double from the dense body is a matter of difficulty. And the double is unable to move away from the body to which it belongs. That's the same thing that kind of Muldoon was saying. Like normal, like healthy people, that's why it's kind of difficult to astral travel. Normal, healthy people are difficult to have an OBE experience because it's all kind of together. This is why we got to trick ourselves or do hemisync or get into certain states of trance, I think. But I wouldn't say normal because that's kind of like a weird judgment, right? Let's just say that. He probably meant to say the average person that doesn't think about conscious exploration or isn't trying to have an out-of-body experience is probably hardly ever separates from it or feels that separation. So the double may be separated from the dense physical body by accident, death, anesthetics, such as ether or gas or mesmerism. The double being the connection or the connecting link between the brain and the higher consciousness. The forcible extrusion of it from the dense physical body by anesthetics necessarily produces anesthesia. Well, I don't remember anything that. I've never remembered anything under anesthesia. We did a whole show on that, though. Further than this, the etheric matter thus forced out usually wraps itself around the astral body and dulls the consciousness of that vehicle. Hence, after the effects of anesthesia have worn off, there's usually no memory in the brain consciousness of the time spent in the astral vehicle. The method and consequences of withdrawal of etheric matter by mesmerism will be dealt with more fully in the chapter specially devoted to the purpose. What is he talking about, mesmerism? Anybody know? Because that's one thing he said like 4 times. The method and consequences of withdrawal of etheric matter by mesmerism. I have no idea what I know what mesmerism means, but I don't know what he means by that. Also, in conditions of weak health or nervous excitement, the etheric double may also, in great part, be extruded from its dense counterpart. The latter then becomes very dully conscious or entranced according to the lesser or greater amount of the etheric matter extruded. So people that are sick or maybe older people can get out of body easier. Maybe. And Muldoon says that too, but separation from the double, from the dense body, is generally accompanied by a considerable decrease of vitality. The double becoming more vitalized as the energy in the dense body diminishes. This guy or person called Posthumous Humanity, Colonel Alcott, says, when the double is projected by a trained expert, even the body seems torpid, and the mind in a brown study or dazed state. The eyes are lifeless in expression, the heart and lung actions feeble and often temperature much lowered. It's very dangerous to make any sudden noise or burst into a room under such circumstances, for the double, being by instantaneous reaction drawn back into the body, the heart convulsively palpitates and death may be caused. Well, that's some scary stuff. Hey, I'll say this though. The few times that I've had OBEs, or any time that I've like felt like I was an OB and I was trying to force myself to come back, or I guess you could say wake up or whatever, like I did feel my heart, palpitate, like beat faster or beat weirdly. So intimate, in fact, is the connection between the etheric and the dense bodies that an injury inflicted on the etheric double will appear as a lesion on the dense body. Really? This being an instance of the curious phenomenon known as repercussion. It is well known that repercussion can also occur in the case of the astral body, an injury to the latter, under certain circumstances, reproducing itself in the physical body. Do you think that might be an explanation, like why people have marks, or they wake up with certain marks, or they think that they've been abducted, maybe, or at least the marks, not abduction. That's a little far-fetched, but it seems probable, however, that repercussion can occur, having marks, I guess lesions on your body from the etheric double. So this can occur only in the case of a perfect materialization where the form is both visible and tangible, and not when it is tangible though not visible, or visible but not tangible. How do they know this stuff, man? This all sounds like true, kind of, right? Like it sounds real, especially based on anybody that's had like true OBE experiences, been out of the body, done all this stuff. But this other stuff they talk about, man, somebody is going to have to eventually, through all these studies that we do, are going to tell us, how do they know this? What experiments did they do to figure this out? Remember that this must be borne in mind that this applies only where matter of the etheric double is used for the materialized form. What's up, Mike? When the materialization is formed of matter from the circumambient ether, an injury to the form could affect the physical body by repercussion no more than an injury to a marble statue could injure the man himself. It must be also borne in mind that etheric matter, though invisible to ordinary sight, is still purely physical, remember that, and can therefore be affected by cold and heat, and also powerful acids. What's the difference? I still don't know the difference between etheric matter and what they're calling ectoplasm. So, for instance, persons who have lost a limb by amputation sometimes complain that they can feel pain at the extremities of the amputated limb, or the place where the limb used to be. This is due to the fact that the etheric portion of the limb is not removed with the dense physical portion. I thought the neurologist said it was like a program in the brain. Even though this happens, but can still be seen in its place by a clairvoyant, and therefore under suitable stimulus, sensations can be aroused in this etheric limb and transmitted to the consciousness. Okay, well, hear me out here, though. If you take something like, let's say, for instance, like what's happening to Gareth. Now, science or doctors, even the neurologists, can't explain. I'm only saying this as an example. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, okay? But they can't explain, really, like, why he's not getting worse. He's getting better. He's moved one finger. Now he's moving three fingers. What if it has to do with the etheric double, right? Like, what if the etheric double is directly connected to, let's say, this placebo place or the soul realm, and once you start, really having faith or doing any kind of work like Dispenza talks about or whatever, that the etheric double begins to heal the material body. That'd be pretty trippy if it works that way. And if it's all working on these atomic levels at different stages, like these occultists are talking about, then it would, right? Now, there are a large number of other phenomena connected with the etheric double. Its exclusion from the dense body, its emanations, and so forth, but these can be dealt with more conveniently and satisfactorily at a later stage, after we have studied the nature and methods of working prana or vitality. All right, you guys ready? We're getting into the deeper secrets here. This is a play off of what we read before, because we learned before, what are the deeper secrets of occultism? Truly, what are they? Not what we've been hearing about in, I guess you could say, the YouTube land, where you're supposed to be scared of everything. But what are the really hidden things there? So we talked about that, right? The tantric mysteries, the etheric double, all of the stuff that it's talking about there, the kind of young Freudian thing that's happening, the transmutation. So now they're going to get even deeper into this, I'm hoping. Let's hope. So it is known to occultists that there are at least 3 separate and distinct forces which emanate from the sun and reach our planet. There may be countless other forces, for all we know to the contrary, but at any rate, we know of these 3. I wish he would say, this is why we know, but whatever. They are 1, Fohat, or electricity; 2, Prana, or vitality; and 3, the Kundalini, or serpent fire. Now, Fohat, or electricity, comprises practically all the physical forces of which we know, all of which are convertible into another, such as electricity, magnetism, light, heat, sound, chemical affinity, motion, and so forth. Prana, or vitality, is a vital force, the existence of which is not yet formally recognized by orthodox Western scientists, though probably a few of them suspect it. And then Kundalini, or serpent fire, is a force known as yet only to a very few. It is entirely unknown and unsuspected by orthodox Western science. These three forces remain distinct, and none of them can at this level be converted into either of the others. This is a point of great importance which the student should clearly grasp. Further, these three forces have no connection with the three great outpourings. The outpourings are definite efforts made by the solar deity, God. Fohat, Prana, and Kundalini, on the other hand, seem rather the results of his life, his qualities, and manifestation without any visible effort. So they have a picture here of the sun and three things coming from the sun: Kundalini, or serpent fire, Prana and vitality, and electricity, or what they call Fohat, that comes from source. And they consider sun to be the source, which is really saying the source is God and it's light and all this other stuff. So it's really not a polar viewpoint if you think about it from religion to what we're talking about here. That's just kind of different names. Since this document was compiled, The Chakras by C.W. Leadbeater has appeared. The chakras, it is stated that the three forces mentioned are connected with the outpourings as follows. The first outpouring from the third logos is the primary force which manufactured the chemical elements. This appears to be Fohat, or electricity. The second outpouring from the second logos has Prana as one of its aspects, and Kundalini is a further development on the ascending arc of the first outpouring. And remember, all of these three things, Prana, vitality, Kundalini, serpent fire, or Fohat, or electricity, according to this guy, they all manifest on all planes of the solar system. Prana is a Sanskrit word derived from pra, forth, and an, to breathe, move, live. Thus, praan, or prana, means to breathe forth, life breath, or life energy, being the nearest English equivalent of the Sanskrit term. As in Hindu thought, there is but one life, one consciousness. Prana has been used for the Supreme Self, the energy of the One, the life of the Logos. Hence, life on each plane may be spoken of as the prana of the plane, prana becoming the life breath in every creature. You know, I will say too, it gets pretty interesting. Like as you get down to like the bigger truths about this, and then rewatch The Matrix, not 1 through 3, but 1 through 4. Like even the last one they put out, you'll start to see how they put a lot of stuff in there. Well, I don't know if they put it in there on purpose. It might have just showed up based like by the muse or something. But here's a quote: "I am Prana. Prana is life," says Indra, the great diva who stands as the head of the hierarchy of the life in the lower world. Prana here clearly means the totality of the life forces. Oh my God. And the Mundakopanishad, it is stated that from Brahman, the one comes from prana, or life, and prana is also described as Atma in its outgoing activity, and from Atma this prana is born. The Prashnopanishad. Shankara says that prana is Kriya Shakti, the Shakti of doing, not of knowing. It is classed as one of the 7 elements, which correspond to the 7 regions of the universe, the 7 sheaths of Brahman, and so forth. These are prana, manas, ether, fire, air, water, and earth. That's pretty damn interesting, man, because seeing how, like I said, like this is supposedly the oldest religion, I can see everything that they just said have been called different things and different spiritualities and in different teachings. And Manly P. Hall said that pretty much all religions are teaching the same thing, especially like Christianity would be the evolved form of the teachings. So prana, manas, ether, fire, air, water, earth. The Hebrews speak of the breath of life, which is called the nephesh, breathed into the nostrils of Adam. The nephesh, however, is not strictly speaking prana alone, but prana combined with the next principle, kama. These together make a vital spark that is the breath of life in man, and beast, or insect, or anything that's physically, materially alive. Translated into more Western terms, prana on the physical plane is best described as vitality, as the integrating energy that coordinates the physical molecules, cells, etc., and holds them together as a definite organism. It is the life breath within the organism, the portion of the universal life breath appropriated by a given organism during the period of bodily existence that we speak of as a life. Were it not for the presence of prana, there could be no physical body as an integral whole, working as one entity. Without prana, the body would be nothing more than a collection of independent cells. So prana links up and connects these into one complex whole, playing along the branches and meshes of the life web, that shimmering golden web of inconceivable fineness and delicate beauty, formed out of a single thread of Buddhic matter, a prolongation of the Sutratma, within the meshes of which the coarser atoms are built together. See, I feel like they could really talk about this stuff. It sounds so cool, and it does sound real. I need to know how they know it, though. That's where the research kind of goes. Well, I can still tell you, though, that seriously, no doubt about this, that based on all of my conscious explorations, and I'm sure some of you guys is too, that a lot of this would make sense. But still, how do they know? Like, how do they know it's real? All prana is absorbed by all living organisms, a sufficient supply of it seeming to be a necessity of their existence. It is not, therefore, in any sense, a product of life, but the living animal, plant, etc. are its products. Too great an exuberance of it in the nervous system may lead to disease and death, just as too little leads to exhaustion and ultimately death. H.P. Blavatsky, there's that name again, compares prana, the active power producing all vital phenomena, to oxygen, the supporter of combustion, the life-giving gas, the active chemical agent in all organic life. A comparison is also drawn between the etheric double, the inert vehicle of life, and nitrogen, an inert gas with oxygen, is mixed to adapt the latter for animal respiration, and which also enters largely into all organic substances. What's up, Zaya? The fact that the cat is preeminently endowed with prana has given rise to the popular idea of the cat having 9 lives, and appears to have been indirectly connected with these reasons for this animal being regarded in Egypt as sacred. On the physical plane, prana builds up all minerals and is the controlling agent in the chemico-physiological changes in protoplasm, which leads to differentiation and the building of the various tissues of the body in plants, animals, and men. They show its presence by the power of responding to stimuli. Man, wouldn't that be a damn trip, though, if, like, at some point in the future, occult science was actually, I'm not saying it's not, but we like had proof that all of this stuff that the occultists were saying is true. And imagine the technological things that they could do, the healings they could do. And man, we might even be able to build one of those machines like they had in The Fifth Element once we figure out what this stuff is, where they kind of, you see how they put that body together? I know it's like science fiction now, but if you think about it, a lot of the stuff we're doing now was science fiction to people 200 years ago. That includes some of the stuff we're doing biologically. So the blending of astral with physical prana creates nerve matter, which is fundamentally the cell, and which gives the power to feel pleasure and pain. The cell develops into fibers, and as the result of thought, the prana pulsating along these fibers being composed of physical, astral, and mental prana. Within the physical plane atoms themselves, the prana courses along the spirale in our chain in the first round, the monadic life, flowing through the spiritual triad, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, which vivifies the verse set of the spirale. And these are used by the pranic currents which affect the dense physical body. And the second round, the monad vivifies the second set of spirale, and through them runs the prana connected with the etheric double. And in the third round, the third set of spirale is awakened by the monadic life, and through them courses the kamic prana, which makes sensations of pleasure and pain possible. And in the fourth round, the monadic life awakens the fourth set, which becomes the vehicle for the kama manasic prana, thus making the atoms fit to be built into a brain for thought. This is as far as normal humanity has progressed. Certain yoga practices, and the use of which great caution is required, lest injury should be inflicted on the brain, bring about the development of the fifth and sixth set, which serve as channels for higher forms of consciousness. The seventh set, in the atom, must not be confused with the whorls, of which there are 10, 3 coarser and 7 finer. Where the hell are they getting this stuff? And the 3 coarser whorls flow currents of different electricities, while the 7 finer whorls respond to the etheric waves of all kinds, sound, light, heat, etc. The secret doctrine speaks of prana as the invisible or fiery lives which supply the cells of microbes with vital constructive energy, thus enabling them to build the physical cells, the size of the smallest bacterium relatively to that of a fiery life, being as that of an elephant to the tiniest infusoria. Every visible thing in the universe was built by such lives, from conscious and divine primordial man, down to the unconscious agents that construct matter. By the manifestation of prana, the spirit which is speechless appears as the speaker. The whole constructive vitality is the universe, and in man is thus summed up as prana. An atom is also a life, but the consciousness is that of the third logos. A microbe is a life, the consciousness being that of the second logos, appropriated and modified by the planetary logos and the spirit of earth. The secret doctrine also speaks of a fundamental dogma of occult science, that the sun is the storehouse of vital force, and that from the sun issues those life currents which thrill through space, as though through the organisms of every living thing on earth. Paracelsus the alchemist thus referred to prana as the whole of the microcosm, which is potentially contained in the liquor vitae, a nerve fluid, in which it contained the nature, quality, character, and essence of all beings. Paracelsus also spoke of it as the archaeus. Dr. B. Richardson, FRS, wrote of it as the nervous ether. The Nasmith willow leaves are the reservoirs of the solar vital energy, the real sun, being hidden behind the visible sun, and generating the vital fluid which circulates throughout our system in a 10-year cycle. Well, the proof is in the prana, right? The old Aryan saying that Surya, hiding behind his yogi, robes his head that no one could see. The dress of the Indian aesthetics is dyed a red-yellow hue with pinkish patches on it, and is intended rudely to represent the prana in men's blood, the symbol of the vital principle in the sun, or what is now called the chromosphere, the rose-colored region. The nerve centers themselves are, of course, provided by the food sheath or dense body, but prana is the controlling energy which acts through the nerve centers, making the food sheath obedient and fashioning it for the purpose of which the I, seated in the higher intelligence, demands. It's also important to note that although the nerves are in the physical body, it is not the physical body, as such, which has the power of feeling. As a sheath, the physical body does not feel. It is a receiver of impressions only. The outer body receives the impact, but in its own cell does not lie the power of feeling pleasure or pain except in very vague, dull, and massive ways, giving rise to vague, diffused feelings such as those of general fatigue, for example. But the physical contacts are transmitted inwards by prana, and these are acute, sharp, keen, specific, quite different from the heavy, diffuse sensations deriving from the cells themselves. It is thus in every case Prana, which gives the sense activity to the physical organs, and which transmutes the outer vibration to the sense centers, which are situated in Kama, in the sheath which is next to Prana, the Manomaya Kosha. It is by means of this etheric double that the prana runs along the nerves of the body and thus enables them to act not only as the carriers of external impacts, but also of motor force originated from within. Oh my God, like this totally makes sense as far as, remember, like it wasn't just but maybe a few months ago when we were reading Sylvan Muldoon, the astral traveler from the 1920s. Who spoke about the double, or I guess he called it the phantom, in the same way that, and all of the things that he talked about would explain what they're saying here. How, all of the different things that happened in that book. So, it is the play of the pranic life currents in the etheric doubles of minerals, vegetables, and animals which awaken out of latency the astral matter involved in the structure of their atomic and molecular constituents, thus producing a thrill, which enables the monad of form to draw in astral materials. Please, God, don't let my computer do an update right now. And these astral materials, which are built by nature spirits into a loosely constituted mass, which is the future astral body. In the mineral, astral matter is so little active that there is no perceptible working from the astral to the physical. In the higher plants, the increased astral activity affects their etheric, and through this, their dense matter. With animals, the much greater astral consciousness affects their etheric doubles, and by these etheric vibrations, the building of the nervous system, which was dimly foreshadowed only in plants, becomes stimulated in the animals. It is thus impulses set up by the consciousness, or the willing to experience, which causes astral vibrations. These producing vibrations in etheric matter, the impulse thus comes from the consciousness, but the actual building of the nervous system, which the consciousness at this stage is unable to undertake, is performed by etheric nature spirits, directed by the shining ones of the third elemental kingdom of the Logos, working through the group soul. I know that voice in your head. It's like, this sounds so freaking cool. Prove it, right? So there appears first in the astral body a center, having the function of receiving and responding to vibrations from outside. From this center, vibrations pass to the etheric body, causing their etheric vortices, which draw into themselves dense physical particles. These eventually form a nerve cell and groups of cells, which, receiving vibrations from the outer physical world, transmit them back to the astral centers. The physical and the astral centers thus acting and reacting on one another, each in consequence becoming more complicated and more effective. Out of these nerve cells, the sympathetic system is built first, by impulses, as we have seen, originating in the astral world, and later the cerebrospinal system is constructed by impulses originating in the mental world. The sympathetic system always remains directly connected with the astral centers, but it is important to note that these astral centers are not the astral chakrams, of which we shall speak later, but are merely aggregations in the astral sheath which form the beginnings of the centers which will build the organs in the physical body. The astral chakrams are not formed till a much later period in evolution. This is a lot, man. I mean, isn't it? Isn't it a lot to take in? There's no science. There's no education that you could learn in school, or any school for that matter, that's going to teach this as truth. You'd have to go into the mystery schools, deep into the mysteries and theosophy and Hinduism, and do what we're doing, pretty much study every aspect of conscious exploration and occultism and mysticism, to where they start putting all of this stuff together. And I mean, it sounds freaking rad, right? But how do you know this? I bet he gets into that though. Surely they do. And if they don't, if there is a text that tells us how they know all this, I will find it. Run it down. From these centers then, which are not the chakrams, 10 organs in the physical are formed, 5 to receive impressions, or I guess these are called janindriyas, knowledge senses or sense centers in the brain, which eventually are connected with the eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin, and 5 to convey vibrations from consciousness to the outer world. Karmendriyas, or action senses, or sense centers which cause action, these being the motor centers in the brain, to be connected with the sense organs in hands, feet, the larynx, or the organs of generation and excretion. You must carefully note that the prana, which courses along the nerves, is quite separate and distinct from what is called a man's magnetism, or nerve fluid, which is generated within his own body. This nerve fluid, or magnetism, keeps the etheric matter circulating along the nerves, or, more accurately, along a coating of ether, which surrounds each nerve. And much as the blood circulates through the veins, and just as the blood carries oxygen to the body, so does the nerve fluid convey prana. Furthermore, just as the particles of the dense physical body are constantly changing and being replaced by fresh particles derived from food, water, and air, so are the particles of the etheric body being constantly changed and replaced by fresh etheric particles, these being taken into the body along with the food that's eaten, with the air that's breathed, and with prana in the form known as the vitality globule, as will presently be described. Prana or vitality exists on all planes. Remember that. Physical, astral, mental, etc. Prana, the one life, is the nave to which are attached the 7 spokes of the universal wheel. We are here, however, concerned only with its appearance and methods of its workings in the lowest physical plane. So it must also be noted that prana on the physical plane is 7-fold, and there are 7 varieties of it. We have seen already that is quite separate and distinct from light, heat, etc., but nevertheless it is. What the hell? Nevertheless, I have to go past these like diagrams. Nevertheless, its manifestation on the physical plane appears to depend upon sunlight. For when sunlight is abundant, prana also appears in abundance, and where sunlight is absent, prana is also deficient. Prana emanates from the sun and enters some of the ultimate physical atoms which float about in the Earth's atmosphere in countless myriads. Although we say that this pranic force enters the physical atom, it does not do so from outside. It enters from a higher dimension, the 4th, and so appears to the clairvoyant as a welling up within the atom. There are thus 2 forces which enter the atom from within: the will force of the Logos, which holds the atom together in its proper shape; the pranic force, that's the second one. And it's important to note that prana comes from the second aspect of the solar deity, whereas the will force emanates from the third aspect. The solar deity? I think Mike Maxey is saying, this reminds me of the raw material, or the 7 rays. Well, those 7 rays are in all of these teachings. I think they're kind of established pretty much, the 7 rays, in all of mysticism and occultism. It just seems like they're interpreted a little bit differently along the lines of each teaching. All right. 3-minute break here. We'll get into this. And remember, the reason why we're digging into this is because we first talked about the nature of the secrets of the mysteries of occultism, right? So how do we learn about what the Kundalini really is, what these tantric forces really are? How do we learn about what transmutation really is and the secrets of alchemy and all of this stuff? Well, herein might lie some of the biggest keys here if we can become to understand this as being occult truth. Still, however, I think it's healthy to hold a set of skepticism to everything and only know what you know through conscious exploration and your own experiments. However, this is pretty damn cool. Right? Oh, yeah, that's cool. We'll be right back.
to Gizmo, in care of this station.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Please drink from both cups and tell us which one makes you smaller.
She said it's alright, but you will make it up next time. I know she knows it's not right. There ain't no use in lying. Maybe she thinks I know something. Maybe she thinks it's fine. Or maybe she knows something I don't. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of trying. It seems to me that maybe it pretty much always means no. So don't tell me. You might just let it.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
It seems to stand in my way. 'Cause no one, no one likes to be let down.
What's up? Thanks for tuning in to Lighting the Void Live.
no longer
on this
sees
Wednesday,
it for her
April the
sleeping
23rd,
eyes.
2025.
I know that when she said
And
she's gonna
I like old school Jack Johnson, don't you?
work because of other
All right. So previously, this throughout the week, we got into a text called "Circuits of Force" that Dion Fortune and Gareth Knight. I guess Dion Fortune wrote most of it, but Gareth Knight kind of picked through it. And so they explain some of the deeper secrets of, I guess you could say alchemy, occultism, all the stuff. And me, like, I want to see how it works, and I know you do too, right? So when we get into this stuff, which is talking about prana and, like the 7 rays that Mike was talking about, these types of things, this is really cool too. But I'm still digging to find. There's got to be some text out there that they say, well, this is why we know this. I'd like to think that they know these things based on their own conscious explorations. And what I have found, for the most part, is brave men and women that want to travel the astral realm, or people that do psychedelics. I'd throw them in there too. Shamanic type, I would say shamanic type journeys. And people that aren't kind of afraid of the mysteries, I'm sure what I'm talking about have experienced some of this stuff. I wouldn't even be reading it if I haven't. It does explain a lot of things, but I still need to know how. So let's keep digging here. Let's see. Students of occultism will be familiar with the shape and structure of the ultimate physical atom, the smallest particle of matter on the physical plane. Out of combinations which are made, the various combinations we know as solid, liquid, and gas. In drawings in this document, therefore, these ultimate physical atoms are indicated as outlines only. But the force of prana, then, radiated from the sun, enters some atoms in the atmosphere and causes them to glow. Can you guys hear me? You can hear me, okay. Such an atom charged with this additional life has a 6-fold power of attraction, so that it immediately draws round it 6 other atoms. These it arranges in a definite form, making what is termed in occult chemistry. Occult chemistry? Is there another word for that? A hyper-meta-proto-element, a combination of matter on the subatomic subplane. This combination, however, differs from all the others so far observed, and that the force which creates it and holds it together comes from the second aspect of the solar deity instead of from the third. We keep saying that phrase, right? The solar deity. That's going to make a lot of people run for the hills, won't it? This form is known as the vitality globule. And this is shown in some of the drawings. You can look this up, which is enlarged on this kind of diagram. They're not very good diagrams, but this little group is the exceedingly brilliant bead upon the male or positive snake in the chemical element oxygen, and is also the heart of the central globe and radium. The globules, on account of their brilliance and extreme activity, can be seen by almost anyone who cares to look, darting about in the atmosphere in immense numbers, especially on a sunny day. The best way to see them is to face directly away from the sun and focus your eyes a few feet away with a clear sky as background. Brilliant as is the globule, it is almost colorless and may be compared to white light. Mike says religions that ignore the sun are a suspect, in my opinion. Yeah. Again, man, like this is where I think Manly P. Hall's brilliance sets in. But he doesn't divide the religions. No, that's where things get shifty, is when we start polarizing everything. He doesn't divide them. If you find the parallels in all religions and all beliefs and all faiths, it all comes down to kind of the same thing, you know. So it has already been remarked that although the force which vivifies these globules is quite different from light, it nevertheless appears to depend upon light for the power of manifestation. In brilliant sunshine, this vitality is constantly welling up afresh, and the globules are generated in incredible numbers. But in cloudy weather, there is a great diminishing in the number of globules formed, and during the night, the operation appears to be entirely suspended. During the night, therefore, we may be said to be living upon the stock manufactured during the previous day. And although it appears practically impossible that it should ever be entirely exhausted, that stock evidently does run low when there is long successions of cloudy days. Well, what about people that aren't there people that just live in darkness? I mean, Portland's pretty close, I would say. How long do they live? Or maybe they don't feel happy. And even if you take like vitamin D all the time, it doesn't feel the same as like living in sunlight, no matter how much vitamin D you take. It is, of course, the work of the physical elemental to defend the body and to assimilate vitality, as will be described in detail in the next chapter, in order to recuperate the physical body. Now, while the physical body is awake, the nerves and the muscles are kept tense, ready for instant action. When the body is asleep, the elementals let the nerves and muscles relax and devotes himself especially to the assimilation of vitality. This accounts for the strong recuperative power of sleep, even of a momentary nap. You can take a quick nap. I did Alaska. December takes a toll. Why are you laughing, Wolf? Because you live in England, right? Well, I mean, the way they're talking about the sun, it's like, well, you're going to die without it. Well, yeah, I mean, the whole solar system would die without the sun, but I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere. The elemental works most successfully during the early part of the night when there is a copious supply of vitality. In the daily cycle, the supply of globules is at its lowest ebb in the small hours of the morning, before sunrise, and this is one reason why so large a proportion of deaths occur during those hours. Hence, also the saying that an hour's sleep before midnight is worth 2 after it. Oh, that might explain why I feel like dog crap sometimes, because I always fall asleep like in the wee hours of late. If I'm asleep by midnight, that's usually I don't know. That's kind of rare, but I'm a night owl though. Also, of course, the supply of prana is at a lower ebb in winter than in summer. That, dude, I can believe that. I'm one of those people that get like winter depression. Winter sucks, man. I hate it. I can get through it, but it's, you know. Further, prana is poured forth, not only on the physical, but also on all planes. Emotion, intellect, and spirituality will be at their very best under clear skies and with the inestimable aid of sunlight. It may also be added that even the colors of etheric prana correspond to some extent to similar hues at the astral level. Hence, right feeling and clear thought react on the physical and assist the latter to assimilate prana and thus maintain vigorous health. We thus find an interesting light thrown on the intimate connection between spiritual, mental, and emotional health and the health of the physical body, and are reminded of the well-known saying of the Lord Buddha that the first step on the road to nirvana is perfect physical health. The vitality globule, once charged, remains as a subatomic element and does not appear to be subject to any change or loss of force unless and until it is absorbed by some living creature. Before proceeding to study the extremely interesting and important subject of the absorption of prana in the body, we must first study the mechanism in the etheric double by means of which this process is effected. This might explain why some people don't have, like, I guess you could say more OBEs than they used to, as many OBEs as they used to have. OBEs, right? Not lucid dreams. Remember that. In the etheric double, as well, incidentally, as in each of our other vehicles, there are certain force centers or chakrams. Is a chakram the same as a chakra? I'm just assuming it is. Chakrams. That's what they're called in Sanskrit. This word meaning literally a wheel or revolving disc. The chakrams are situated on the surface of the etheric double, that is about 1/4 of an inch outside the skin of the body. To clairvoyants, people that can see this stuff, they appear as vortices or saucer-like depressions of rapidly rotating matter. The force flowing through the chakrams being essential to the life of the etheric double. Everyone possesses such force centers, though the degree of their development varies considerably in individuals. Where they are undeveloped, they glow dully, and the etheric particles move sluggishly, just forming the vortex necessary for the transmission of the force, and no more. In developed people, on the other hand, the chakrams glow and pulsate, blazing with blinding brilliance like miniature suns. They vary in size from about 2 inches in diameter to about 6 inches. In a newborn baby, they are tiny little circles like a 3-penny piece, little hard discs scarcely moving at all and only faintly growing. The etheric chakrams have 2 distinct functions. The first is to absorb and distribute prana, or vitality, to the etheric and thence to the physical, thus keeping these alive. The second function is to bring down into the physical consciousness whatever may be the quality inherent in the corresponding astral center. It is the lack of development of the etheric centers which accounts for the failure to bring into the physical brain memory of astral experiences. And many people are fully awake and vividly conscious on the astral plane and lead active lives in their astral body. That's the goal right there. Boom. Like, check this out, okay? If you think about the nature of the basics of ceremonial magic too, just those first ceremonies, they kind of go along exactly with all of this, especially the middle pillar, right? Be nice if they told you why you were doing those things, wouldn't it? When, however, they return to their sleeping bodies, scarcely any memory of the astral life filters through into the brain, simply because the necessary etheric bridge is not built. When the etheric centers are fully developed, there is full and conscious memory of astral experiences in the brain. There appears to be no connection between the activity of development of the etheric chakrams and moral qualities. The 2 developments are quite distinct. Now, although there is in the astral body an astral center corresponding to each of the etheric centers, yet, as the astral center is a vortex in 4 dimensions, it extends in a direction quite different from the etheric, and consequently, the astral center is by no means always, conterminous with the corresponding etheric center, although some part of it is always coincident. While the etheric centers are always on the surface of the etheric body, the astral center is frequently in the interior of the astral body. So, we've already seen that there are 7 varieties of prana, all of which are present in all the chakrams, but in each chakrams, one of the varieties is always greatly predominant. The prana rushes into the center of each chakram from a direction at right angles to the plane of the chakram. Welling up would perhaps be a better term, as the force comes from the astral plane into the etheric. And from the center of the chakram, the force then radiates at right angles to the direction from which it came, in the plane of the surface of the etheric double in a number of directions and in straight lines. The number of directions, which are similar to the spokes of a wheel, is different in each chakram. Now, the spokes divide the chakram into a number of segments like the petals of a flower. Hence, in Hindu books, the chakrams are often described as resembling flowers. Now, somewhat as a bar magnet thrust into a coil of wire will set up or induce a current of electricity in the wire at right angles to the axis of the magnet, so does the primary force of prana entering the chakram set up or induce secondary forces in the plane of the chakram. These secondary forces spin round the chakram, passing over and under the spokes, much as the material of the bottom of a circular basket passes over and under the ribs, which radiate from the center. Each of these secondary forces sweeping around the chakram has its own characteristic wavelength and, in addition, moves not in straight lines, but in relatively large undulations, each of which is a multiple of wavelength within it. I guess that means we actually do, if they're right, we do vibrate, like on frequencies like that. The wavelengths are very minute, and probably some thousand of them are very minute, and probably some thousand of them are included in one undulation. Though the exact proportion has not yet been determined, the general effect is shimmering and iridescent, like mother of pearl, or a certain variety of Venetian glass. The chakrams are often spoken of as corresponding to certain physical organs, and those organs, in fact, which are the nearest to them. But, as already mentioned, the chakrams themselves are not in the interior of the body, but on the surface of the etheric double. The list of the chakrams and their names is as follows. Number 1, the base of the spine is the Muladhara. I'm going to butcher these probably. Number 2, the navel. Nearest the navel is the Manipura. Number 3, the spleen is the Svadhisthana. Number 4, the heart is the Anahata. Number 5, the throat is the Visuddha. Number 6, between the eyebrows is the Anja. The top of the head is the Sahasrara. And then there's also the Brahmanandra. Is that what that is? And then you have the lower organs. So number 8, so that's 8, 9, and 10. It just says lower organs. So number 8, 9, and 10, connected with the lower organs of the body, are not used by students of the white magic. Ooh. So according to this text, only black magicians use 8, 9, and 10. But you're not going to tell us why? According to, Though there are certain schools in existence which makes use of them that aren't necessarily black magicians, but the dangers connected with them are so serious that we should consider their awakening as the greatest of misfortunes. The flow of vitality into or through any chakram is quite separate and distinct from the development of the chakram brought about by the awakening of Kundalini, which will be described later. We shall now proceed to the study of each of the 7 chakrams in turn, examining its structure, appearance, its function, and the faculties associated with it. For reasons which will presently appear, it will be convenient to commence with the 3rd center, that situated near the spleen. Dude, I want to know about, I'm sorry, but I want to know about the 8th, 9th, or 10th, what are you talking about here? The spleen center has 6 spokes and therefore the same number of petals or undulations. In appearance, it is especially radiant, glowing, and sun-like. This center is unique in this that it has the all-important function of absorbing the vitality globules from the atmosphere, disintegrating them, and distributing the component atoms charged with the specialized and transmuted prana to the various parts of the body. The process will most readily be followed with the aid of these diagrams. So it just shows it just shows like these angles like flowing out these globules, and it just keep getting bigger. The vitality globules are first drawn into the spleen center, then they are broken up into 7 component atoms, and each atom charged with one of the 7 varieties of prana. Then these atoms are then caught up by the rotating secondary forces and spun round the chakram. How the hell do they know this stuff? The 7 different kinds of prana are colored thus: violet, blue, green, yellow, orange, dark red, and rose red. Please tell, all right, look, you have to carry a little bit of skepticism with everything you do in conscious exploration, right? But please tell me that the only way that we could know this is enough people experienced it and came back and said, yeah, I saw it. I mean, how else could they measure this? How else do they know this? I get it, man. Because I can't prove that I had an OBE experience, but I did. So, anyways, it will be observed that the divisions are not exactly those to which we are accustomed in the solar spectrum, but resemble rather than arrangement of color seen on higher levels in the causal, mental, and astral bodies. The indigo spectrum is divided between the violet and blue rays of prana, while the red of the spectrum is split up into dark red and rose red prana. Each of the 6 spokes then seizes on one variety of atom and dispatches it into the chakram or part of the body for which it is needed. I guess that's the only way, right? Like we had just to see it. Yeah, that's the only way. You have a bunch of people saying, I'm clairvoyant. I see this stuff. Or you see it. I mean, once you experience something like this, anyways, like an OBE, or you have a pretty profound experience, you know, like, no one's going to believe you. Most people aren't going to believe you. All right, each of the 6 spokes then seizes on one variety of atom and dispatches it to the chakram or part of the body which is needed. This accounts for 6 kinds of atoms. Only the 7th variety, that colored rose pink, is dispatched through the hub or center of the spleen chakram itself. Then it's distributed over the whole nervous system. These rose-colored atoms are the original atoms which first draw around them the 6 others to form the globule. What's up, Joyce? What's up, Deacon Bean Cooter? Love the name. The atoms which bear the rose-colored prana are clearly the life of the nervous system. Yeah. Well, isn't that the same color of blood? I would say. And it is this variety of prana which one man may give to another, as described later. If the nerves are insufficiently supplied with this rose-colored prana, they become sensitive and intensely irritable. The patient finds himself restless, and the least noise or touch is agony to him. Instant relief may be afforded by him, some healthy person flooding his nervous system with a supply of rose-colored prana. Now, although there are 7 distinct kinds of prana, there are only 5 main streams, as described in some Indian books. And because after issuing from the spleen chakram, the blue and violet join into one stream, and the orange and the dark red join into another stream, and these streams leave the spleen center horizontally. Now here are the colors of the streams and their destinations. Violet blue is set to send to the throat center, green to the navel center and abdomen generally, yellow to the heart center, the orange, dark red, and some dark purple to the base of the spine center, and rose red to the nervous system. As the various kinds of prana or charged atoms are distributed where required, the charge of prana is withdrawn from them, precisely as a charge of electricity might be withdrawn. The prana gives life to the etheric double and, through that, to the dense body, the degree of health of the parts of the body being largely determined by the volume of prana distributed. The bearing of this significant fact on the maintenance of physical vigor and the cure of disease is clearly of great importance and will be more fully considered when we speak about healing and mesmerism. Well, I mean, if you think about this too, like, I don't know the truth of this, but Dr. Stylianos Atestolos or Daskalos might have been one of the masters that taught the Theosophists some of this stuff. I don't know. There's rumors about it. Just like there's rumors about Steiner and Theosophy and stuff, but nobody knows the truth about all of that. However, if you read Daskalos's or Dr. Stylianos Atestolos' material, he does speak of vitality in a lot of the same way that they're speaking about it in this book. Not prana, but I think he speaks about etheric vitality is what he calls it. And he definitely uses color too, so. The atoms, being the rose-colored prana, grow gradually paler as they sweep along the nerves and part with the pranic content. They are eventually discharged from the body through the pores of the skin, as well as in other ways, forming what is called the health aura, a pale bluish-white emanation of which a plate is given in man, visible and invisible. In a man in vigorous health, the spleen does its work so generously that considerably more of the particles charged with prana are present than the man requires for his own use. Well, let me ask you this. What the hell happens when you have to have your spleen removed? Is this kind of why, I mean, nobody wants to lose an organ, right? But I wonder if this is why Manly P. Hall talks about in his books, like, you shouldn't lose your organs, because every time you do, it messes with the energy centers or whatever in their body. These unused particles are discharged from the body in all directions through the health aura, along with the particles from which the prana has been extracted. Such a man is thus a source of health and strength to those around him, constantly, though unconsciously, shedding vitality onto anybody who comes in their vicinity. The process may be considerably intensified by those who definitely set themselves to heal others by mesmeric passes and otherwise, as we shall see more later. Ooh, I'm into that. In addition to these particles just mentioned, it is also well known that small particles of dense physical matter are continually being thrown off from a man's body, and insensible perspiration, and in other ways. A clairvoyant will see these particles as a faint gray mist, and many of the particles are crystalline in form and therefore appear as geometrical figures. One of the commonest, that of salt or sodium chloride, which takes the form of cubes. A man, on the other hand, who is unable for any reason to specialize for his own use a sufficient amount of prana, frequently and also unconsciously acts as a sponge, and his physical elemental drawing vitality from any sensitive person who happens to be near him, to his own temporary benefit, but often to the serious injury of the victim. This phenomenon largely accounts for those feelings of weariness and languor which come over one after being near people who, not being very strong themselves, possess this unfortunate vampire-like faculty of draining others' vitality. The same thing may happen often in an aggravated form at spiritualistic seances. Damn. That kind of makes the whole vampirism thing a bit more real, doesn't it? Right? The health aura, constituting of these particles ejected from the body, serves the useful purpose of protecting the man from the invasion of disease germs. In health, the particles are thrown out through the pores in straight lines at right angles to the surface of the body, giving to the health aura a striated effect. As long as the lines remain firm and straight, the body seems to be almost entirely protected from the attack of evil physical influences such as disease germs, things like that, but the germs being actually repelled and carried away by the outrush of pranic force. But when, on an account of weakness, over fatigue, a wound, depression of spirits, or through the excesses of an irregular life, an unusually large amount of prana is required to repair waste of damages within the body, and there is consequently a serious diminution in the quantity radiated. The lines of the health aura droop, become erratic and confused, and the system of defense is weakened, and it is then comparatively easy for deadly germs to effect an entrance. Is that how I got a stomach bug? Like, am I weak in prana right now? I don't know. So, in the Science of Breath, translated by Rama Prasad, it is stated that the natural length from the body to the periphery of the halo of prana is 10 fingers during inspiration of the breath and 12 during expiration. At other times, the lengths are stated to be as follows: in eating and speaking, 18 fingers. They measured things by fingers. And walking, 24. And running, 42. And cohabitation, 65. And sleeping, 100. A reduction in length is said to result when a man overcomes desire or gains the 8 cities. It seems probable, though by no means certain, that the halo mentioned is the health aura. The term fingers here means, according to the method of reckoning used in India, not the length of a finger, but the width of a finger. Both etheric matter and prana are very readily amendable to the human will. It is possible, therefore, to protect oneself to a considerable extent from hostile influences mentioned above by making an effort of the will to check the radiation of vitality at the outer extremity of the health aura, building it there into a wall or shell which will be impervious to disease germs and also prevent the vitality from being sucked away by anyone near who has the vampire tendency. You know, no one ever says, you know, a lot of people talk about vampires, right? I don't want to get, they're a psychic vampire. They're an energy vampire. Well, how many of those people do you think are vampires themselves, though? Word out shit. Has the vampire, okay. So with a little further effort, a shell may be made impervious also to astral or mental influence. So this would explain why the sign of silence and that sphere that both, I would say David Griffin, Chick Cicero, I'm only speaking of ceremonial magicians here. Who else? Frederick Xavier, when they talk about making that sphere of protection. It could help create these etheric shells. So the etheric shell is so important that it will be necessary later on in this book to enter into it rather more fully than we have done here. We are dealing purely with the health aura. The development of the spleen center enables the man to remember his astral journeys, though sometimes only very partially, the faculty associated with the corresponding astral center being that of traveling consciously in the astral body. Those vague memories that most of us have of blissful flights through the air are often due to slight accidental stimulation of the spleen chakram. It may be mentioned in passing that the astral center corresponding to the spleen also has the function of vitalizing the whole astral body. And that was the spleen center, right? That was just that one area that we talked, that whole freaking chapter. The base. Now, the next one is the base of the spine center, which I hope I got time to do. But now, the first center or chakram at the base of the spine has a primary force which radiates in 4 spokes, making the center appear to be divided into quadrants, with hollows between them like a cross, a symbol which is often used to represent the center when aroused into full activity. The center is fiery orange-red in color, corresponding closely with the stream of dark red and orange vitality which comes to it from the spleen center. It may be mentioned that in every case there is a similar correspondence between the color of the stream of vitality flowing into a center and the color of the center itself. In addition to the orange and darker reds, there is also some dark purple vitality flowing into the center, rather as though the spectrum bent round in a circle and the colors began again at a lower octave. From this center, the orange-red ray flows to the generative organs, energizing the sexual nature. It also seems to enter the blood and keep up the heat of the body. And this is also why, I think that when people abstain from sex or do whatever, or whatever things they're doing, you can feel this energy too. So from the center, the orange-red ray flows to the generative organs, energizing the sexual nature, and it also seems to enter the blood and keep up the heat of the body. A very remarkable and important effect can be produced by a person who persistently refuses to yield to their lower nature. By long and determined effort, the orange-red ray can be deflected upwards to the brain, where all 3 constituents undergo a profound modification. The orange is raised into pure yellow and intensifies the intellectual powers. The dark red becomes crimson and increases the power of unselfish affection, and the dark purple is transmuted into a beautiful pale violet, quickening the spiritual part of the nature. The seat of the Kundalini, or the serpent fire, is the base of the spine center, and this will be dealt with in a later chapter, but for the present, oh my God, dude. I just had the craziest freaking deja vu. Not a little one. That was a big one. Okay. Let me finish this paragraph here, and then we got to roll out of here because this stuff is getting intense. We're going through the centers here, all right? The seat of the Kundalini, or the serpent fire, is the base of the spine center. This will be dealt in the later chapter, but for the present, We may just note that a man who has achieved the transmutation just mentioned will find that sensual desires no longer trouble him, and when it becomes necessary for him to arouse the serpent fire, he will be free from the most serious of dangers of that process. When a man has finally completed the change, the orange-red ray passes straight into the center at the base of the spine, and thence runs upwards through the hollow of the vertebral column into the brain. A flaming cross is a symbol sometimes used to represent the serpent fire residing in the base of the spine center. That was nuts. I had just reading that one paragraph. It's not like that. I don't think it had any deep meaning or anything, but man, I just had a freaking massive deja vu. Almost like I slipped out of reality or in between realities there for a minute. I know I haven't read this before, right? What is this? Arthur E. Powell, The Etheric Double. No, I haven't read this before. Right? The Etheric Double, The Health Aura of Man, A.E. Powell. No, I haven't read this before. Dude, that was freaking trippy. All right. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it doesn't get a little dreamy, but it's also like I've done this before. Not just like I passed the same road and looked at it kind of feeling. I don't know. Anyways, you know what deja vu is. It was pretty intense. That was an intense one. We'll be back tomorrow night. We'll go through all of this stuff, and I'm still digging too. If you know a text where they can, if you can find a text where like the alchemist or any of this occult stuff that we talk about on the occult side of things, because you can't really prove any of this stuff on the OBE side of things because you just have to go out of body and find out for yourself, right? Like through HemiSync or whatever you're doing. But all of these like terms and rules and how all of the architecture works in the conscious realms or in the energetic realms of the body, like it's cool to read about the stuff, but we need to find out like how they know it other than clairvoyants say that that's real. Well, there's got to be another way, right? I would hope. Yeah, we're out of here. We got to get out of here. We'll see you guys back tomorrow night. Thanks for coming out tonight and listening to the broadcast. Anybody that listens to the broadcast after, thank you guys so much for your support, and I appreciate you and your patience too. Love you, and night. Sweet dreams.
Yeah.
Bye.